Urgent. Has the final offensive before the end of Russia really begun? The front has never been like this before. An unexpected finale with an explosion right near Zaporizhzhia. Ukrainian special forces took out Putin's best soldiers. The Donbas is being cleared and the road to the Azov coast is finally open. These strikes have finally shattered the dictator's peace of mind. More than 750 drones have encircled Russia. Kursk region is in mourning. Baba Yaga did an excellent job. High-value targets destroyed. This is something you have to see. Moscow switches to round-the-clock alert mode. Shock. Turkey is preparing a mega strike against Iran. It seems Erdogan's patience has snapped. Tehran is being squeezed in Ankara's fist of power. There will be no more warnings. An explosion is brewing, and all of this is happening right now. Hello, I'm Daryna Hutskalo, and we're getting started. At this very moment, the Ukrainian armed forces are swiftly clearing out the enemy near Zaporizhzhia, moving towards the liberation of the entire region. A new reality that is shocking Russian generals. In the Huliapol direction, our forces have wiped out an entire column of occupiers to ashes. The best soldiers of the world's Second Army couldn't withstand such hellish pressure.
A tank, an armored fighting vehicle, and 2 quad bikes carrying troops moving along the Malinivka-Zelenyi High Huliapol route were detected in time by our operators. The equipment was destroyed by fire. The troops tried to hide in residential buildings, but even there, death caught up with them.
Ukrainian special forces showed the occupiers the fist of strength. Near Zaporizhzhia, the enemy's plans went down the drain. Gerasimov's mega offensive got stuck. The main intelligence directorate shared spectacular details of Putin's army's failure. The enemy's forces have never sunk this low before.
With precise strikes from drones and artillery, military intelligence operatives are systematically limiting the logistics capabilities of the Muscovites. Due to a lack of supplies, the occupiers are increasingly refusing to carry out assault operations in this direction. The actions of the special forces have made it possible to stabilize the defense at positions advantageous for Ukrainian defenders and to secure Zaporizhzhia.
The Russians are exposing themselves literally along the entire front line. Now, not only are they left without combat vehicles, but also without a drone control center. In the Donetsk direction near Pokrovsk, our defenders forced the occupiers to cry out. A new predator emerged from the shadows in spectacular fashion.
A Ukrainian-made strike drone, the Bulava, destroyed enemy equipment that had been cutting off logistics for our units.
It seems Ukrainian forces are preparing to wrest Donbas from the enemy's grasp and are clearing the way to the Azov coast. This can no longer be hidden.
Mariupol. They say something hit there. The epicenter is the Kalmyusky district. Local sources report jet-powered UAVs of the airplane type.
Urgent. This is a real sensation. Ukraine has set a record. The skies over Russia and Crimea are literally filled with our drones. In just one day, more than 750 drones encircled several regions at once. Russian soldiers desperately tried to present this as a victory, but the reality is harsher than ever.
Air defense systems shot down 3 guided aerial bombs and 3 HIMARS multiple launch rocket system missiles made in the USA. And 754 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles according to the agency. And
here are the first results. A massive strike in the Novgorod region of the Russian Federation. The target of the Ukrainian drones may have been the Akron chemical plant, one of Russia's largest enterprises in the production of mineral fertilizers. A real nuclear mushroom cloud appeared in the sky. Meanwhile, the pro-war correspondents are now openly falling into depression. In the Kursk region, a raid by the Ukrainian Baba Yaga took out Russia's best officers.
On the morning of March 6, 2026, an attack was carried out on a group of officers near the settlement of Tyotkino, Kursk region. 3 82mm mines were dropped on the group from a Baba Yaga UAV.
The panic among the Russians does not subside for a moment. The day before, drones struck the key Armavir oil station in Krasnodar Krai. This strike became yet another painful signal for the enemy. Ukrainian drones are reaching even strategic targets deep behind enemy lines.
Can you hear that sound right now? There was only a continuous buzzing sound.
Striking such a hub affects several elements of the system at once. It can disrupt the operation of a pipeline section and reduce pumping volumes, create a shortage in the reservoir buffer, and halt rail tanker loading, through which fuel is further distributed across the regions.
As we can see, ours have only just picked up speed. The moment of Ukraine's triumph and Russia's total defeat is already within arm's reach. Moscow is visibly nervous. Russia is urgently expanding the ring of air defense around the capital.
The strengthening of the air defense system of the Russian capital may be related to the increased range and effectiveness of Ukrainian cruise missiles and drones. Some fragments of munitions fell on empty fields in Gaziantep. No one was injured as a result of the incident.
But whether reinforcing the Russian capital with towers will actually help is a rhetorical question. We are monitoring the situation as it develops. This happened urgently. Iran really did wake up Erdogan. A new ballistic missile launched towards Turkey. The world is holding its breath. According to the Ministry of Defense, the enemy target was intercepted by NATO air defense systems.
Some fragments of the ammunition fell on empty fields in Gaziantep. No one was injured as a result of the incident.
Ankara is barely restraining itself. The patience of the Turkish leader is at its limit. This could be the last warning for Tehran. An emergency statement has already sounded like thunder.
Turkey attaches great importance to good neighborly relations and regional stability. However, we once again emphasize that all necessary steps will be taken decisively and without hesitation in life against any threat directed at the territory and airspace of our country. We remind everyone that heeding Turkey's warnings on this matter is in everyone's best interest.
It should be noted that a similar incident, by the way, already occurred on March 4th. At that time, urgent reports began to appear online. A ballistic missile launched from Iran was detected as it crossed the airspace of Iraq and Syria. According to preliminary data, it was heading toward Turkish airspace. However, the dangerous target was intercepted in time. The missile was destroyed by elements of NATO's air and missile defense systems deployed in the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. The alliance's security system responded quickly, and the threat was neutralized before it could reach its target. How it could have reached its target? Will Tehran push its luck too far, and will Ankara strike with a show of force? At this very moment, Hungary has crossed the border. A diplomatic bomb has exploded in the very heart of Europe. Orban has gone all in. Ultimatums and demands that leave Brussels breathless. Ukraine is not falling behind. Zelensky lays his trump cards on the table and strikes the pro-Kremlin jester with a decisive statement. In Budapest, this left them reeling. What is really happening on the Ukrainian-Hungarian diplomatic track? All this coming up in just a moment. Hungarian political pressure on Ukraine has reached its peak. Hungary's pro-Russian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is threatening to force Kiev to act on his terms using force. It seems he has already moved to action.
The pressure is unprecedented, but everything has led to this. It is precisely because of the unwavering persistence and the remarkable consistency shown by Viktor Orban and his ruling political clique that we are now able to speak so boldly and with such great confidence today.
On the night of March 6th, it became known that Hungary had unjustifiably detained 2 vehicles belonging to the Oshad Bank cash collection service and 7 Ukrainian citizens. These were employees of the cash collection team. This happened in Budapest, and the Ukrainians were carrying out regular transportation of foreign currency and banking medals between Ukrainian and Hungarian banks. The vehicles were transporting $40 million, 35 million euros, and 9 kilograms of gold. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Andriy Sybiha, stated that the Hungarian authorities have effectively taken the Ukrainians hostage and stolen the money. Contact with the Shot Bank employees has been lost, and their current condition is unknown. Ukrainian consuls are not being allowed access to the abducted cash couriers. According to media reports citing sources, the vehicles are located on the secured premises of the Hungarian Counter-Terrorism Center, which is under the control of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Meanwhile, the Hungarian tax service has confirmed the detention of 7 Ukrainian citizens. They stated that the Ukrainians are suspected of money laundering. A criminal case has already been opened regarding this matter. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine is urging its citizens not to travel to Hungary following the detention of cash couriers and the theft of state bank property in Budapest. The agency noted that it cannot guarantee the safety of Ukrainians due to the arbitrariness of the Hungarian authorities.
They accuse a country that has become a victim of aggression of being aggressive toward Hungary, even though this is an outright lie. In principle, it's obvious since they have clearly become an agent of Kremlin influence. All of this is absolutely logical, and it reaches a dramatic peak, where there is now even significant room for political terrorism, in the form of the violent seizing of armored cash-in-transit vehicles.
At the same time, Putin is actively helping Orban in the overall scheme of pressure on Ukraine. On March 4th, Hungarian Minister Péter Szijjártó personally collected 2 prisoners of war from the armed forces of Ukraine in Moscow who hold dual citizenship, Ukrainian and Hungarian. Orban has already called this the liberation of his people from forced mobilization. Ukraine condemned the transfer of its citizens without any coordination with Kyiv as a violation of international law, calling it a provocation and the politicization of the sensitive issue of prisoners of war. But what led up to these events, and why is Orban now putting particular pressure on Ukraine? Let's figure it out. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said on March 5th that he was ready to force Ukraine to resume the transit of Russian oil through the pipeline. Friendship. According to Orban, Hungary has the political and financial tools to force Ukraine to resume oil transit. At present, Hungary has officially appealed to the European Commission, demanding that Ukraine be forced to comply with transit agreements, while the European Union has stated that the suspension of the Friendship pipeline does not currently threaten the bloc's energy security. For his part, President Zelensky once again reminded that the pipeline was damaged precisely as a result of Russian attacks. And here it is worth recalling that Budapest, as one of its levers of pressure on Kyiv, is using the blocking of the European Union's €90 billion loan to Ukraine for 2026 to 2027. And it is the only EU country that is preventing this decision from being adopted. Most likely it is this factor, as President Zelensky commented the day before, that has become a new twist in this story. We hope that a single person in the European Union will not block the 90 billion, or the first tranche of the 90 billion. And that Ukrainian soldiers will be armed. If we give this person's address to our armed forces, to our guys, let them call him and talk to him in their own language. Later, the Hungarian government called this statement by the Ukrainian leader an open threat. The leader of the Hungarian opposition also criticized these words. Péter Magyar believes that the Ukrainian president should retract his words about the Hungarian prime minister. After that, in fact, it happened. The detention of Ukrainian cash couriers in Budapest. But many experts believe that even if Zelensky had not spoken out like that, the government led by Orban would still have acted according to its usual scheme. And there are several reasons for that.
Here it is quite obvious that this blatant selling of his entire political soul to the Kremlin, which Orban has clearly and decisively done, is a major concern. This sequence of events inevitably and unavoidably led to the fact that in this devolution, which transpired during his time as a prominent democratic youth leader, he eventually became an undisguised and active agent of Moscow's influence. He is a deeply corrupt and absolutely self-interested figure who is heavily invested in the continuous supply of Russian oil, and over the past 4 years he has done absolutely nothing to diversify these energy sources. Since this situation provides a direct personal benefit for him, it is also a completely logical and predictable development in his political career.
And all this is happening against the backdrop of the crucial April elections to the Hungarian parliament for Orban.
In the specific context of these upcoming elections, when for the very first time since the year 2010, there is a significant and formidable challenge to Orban's long-standing grip on power. He is a leader who is clearly autocratic in his style, and who, ever since 2012, has faced persistent and serious problems with the European Union because he has so blatantly and repeatedly violated its fundamental rules, as well as the core principles and the essential tenets of a modern democracy. So yes, naturally, within the heat of this political struggle, he is deliberately choosing to follow this specific and controversial path.
Obviously, as long as the Hungarian government is led by the pro-Russian politician Viktor Orban, Ukraine will always face pressure from Budapest. But can Ukraine and its partners counter this? And will Orban remain in power? Only time can answer this question. Urgent. NATO is shaken. Russia has once again delivered a shock. Military units near the alliance's border have been placed on full combat readiness. The dictator is playing with fire again. Lithuania is ready to act decisively. There is uncertainty in the air. Is this really a pause, or is the Kremlin just flexing its muscles? When might Moscow move from a show of force to actual attacks on the alliance? And what does this mean for Europe? We are figuring it out right now. Russia is deploying its troops directly on the NATO border. Lithuanian intelligence services are sounding the alarm about what could happen after the war in Ukraine ends and sanctions are lifted. The Kremlin could launch a large-scale military conflict with the alliance in as little as 6 years.
Russia is expanding its military units on the NATO border, gaining combat experience in Ukraine. And it may use them as a base for a potential conflict with NATO after the war, Lithuania's intelligence service stated on Friday in its annual security threat assessment.
According to Lithuanian intelligence, based on its military experience in Ukraine, Moscow will create an army that is 30 or even 50% larger than before 2022 and much more modern. It will restore strategic reserves of weapons and ammunition, as well as new divisions. All of this is already happening along NATO's borders.
This time, it's all about how Europe should be constantly on edge and deeply afraid that the war could eventually come to them, and therefore they should really make some significant preparations. These are actually concessions pressuring Ukraine so that Russia can devour Ukraine and calm down for a certain period. That's an illusion. If not, then we can repeat it at any moment. And
while Russia, so to speak, is probing the ground to understand where exactly NATO's red lines are, the question of whether the Kremlin will attack, and if so, when and under what conditions, remains relevant.
Estonian intelligence. Russia will not attack NATO countries this year. According to intelligence assessments, if sanctions are lifted, Russia will be ready for a large-scale military conflict with NATO in 6 years.
But here it's important to consider another crucial aspect. When it comes to the Kremlin, ordinary logic does not apply.
Putin doesn't necessarily need any logical reasoning to attack. Because I remember very well, again, going back to the full-scale war, everyone was saying it was illogical, there weren't enough forces. It's not now, it will be later. To launch a full-scale offensive, you need these kinds of forces, such and such, like this. But they weren't there. But Putin went ahead anyway. So when our European colleagues think something is logical or illogical, that should be dismissed right away. Putin's logic is different.
It's also important to understand that the predictions of politicians about a possible attack on NATO and the predictions of the military about the same attack are somewhat different forecasts.
So 3 years, 5 years, those are great time frames. But again, that's what the politicians are saying. And when politicians speak, they're talking to the electorate. Don't worry, we still have 3 years, we'll get ready. We still have 5 years, we'll get ready. There are also some phrases that really get to me. There are still a few countries between us, but let's remember World War II, when politicians also thought there were some countries between them, but those countries surrendered at some point. Where's the guarantee that some country won't say, that's it, we surrender, we don't want this, like in Ukraine, please don't kill us, we surrender. Is that possible? Yes, it is.
The Kremlin will not stop in Ukraine. It will not stop at the Baltic countries. This is an empire, and it will never have enough. And this empire will only stop when it gets punched in the teeth.
A politician must say, of course, it's a shot in the foot, but it's also a shot at a future enemy. Yes, there will be war. Yes, we will prepare. That's what Ukraine also didn't have, and that's why it turned out this way. A politician who scares the electorate is unpopular. Unpopular. Because, well, who is going to vote for war? So if Europe doesn't explain to its citizens that what's happening in Ukraine is your war too. Don't want to fight? Then help. Don't whine that something was taken away from you. Because each of us would have paid a very large sum not to live in war, we would have gathered some amount, taken out a loan, anything but this. But we didn't have a choice. I mean, we don't. We're already in it. But they do have a choice to help us. And that's the best preparation. The Russian Federation is fragmented. Putin is punished, reparations and everything else. It's an example for everyone. You can't do things like this. That's what readiness looks like, in my opinion. But that's a Ukraine-centric view. I'm not sure that everyone in Europe supports this.
Today, Europe has a choice. To do everything possible so that in the future you don't find Russian tanks in your own home, or to wait until the Kremlin regains strength, prepares and attacks. The Kremlin is in panic, Putin is looking for a way out. Negotiations have collapsed, ultimatums are coming one after another, and Moscow is literally trembling with fear. It seems external events, the war between the US and Israel against Iran, has given Putin an opportunity to publicly back away from peace. But Ukraine is giving him no chance to escape. Budanov has blocked all routes for the Kremlin. The country is turning into a shield for the Middle East. The dictatorship regime in Russia is rapidly losing control. The generals are in panic and the system is literally bursting at the seams. Let's watch.
Putin wants to withdraw from peace negotiations with Ukraine. The pretext will be the war in the Middle East.
Kremlin officials are criticizing the United States for military operations against Iran and are using the escalation of the conflict in the Middle East to create conditions to blame the US for any future failures in peace negotiations regarding Ukraine. In
the context of negotiations, the war in Iran played into Moscow's hands. Over the past few weeks, the Russians have focused on sabotaging the peace process.
If you remember, even after Geneva, they were already preparing the ground to disrupt them. What were they doing? If you remember, they were talking about nuclear rhetoric, about how France or Britain, though they hadn't decided yet, might be planning to transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine.
Now instead of pseudo-historian Medinsky heading the delegation, fake stories about transferring nuclear weapons, and Ukraine's alleged attempt to eliminate Putin in Valdai, Russian propagandists and officials were pushing the narrative about the unreliability of negotiations with.
A growing number of concerned citizens residing throughout the various regions of the United States have recently begun to speak out, and they say that
the spirit of Anchorage has been destroyed because of the actions of the United States.
The point is that in the negotiations, the Kremlin is interested exclusively in Ukraine's capitulation, with the voluntary withdrawal of the armed forces of Ukraine from the territory of Donbas. Kyiv, obviously, will not agree to such demands from the aggressor.
Regarding the territorial issue, as I told you, we are looking for a compromise between two absolutely polar positions. We have not yet found it completely. In the end, we will have to state that either we have found a solution and we all completely end this war. Or, likewise, we all take responsibility for not having found a solution and continue to kill each other, which we are doing quite efficiently and professionally.
At the same time, Washington continues to believe in the negotiation process. According to Donald Trump, the war with Iran has not affected his position in any way.
As for Russia and Ukraine, where does this stand on my list of priorities? Very high. I've seen a lot of hatred in my life, but I think this is at the very top of the scale. I believe it will happen. Sometimes I blame one side, sometimes I blame the other, but it ranks high on my list.
Meanwhile, with negotiations on hold, both Russia and Ukraine are becoming prominent players in the Middle Eastern war. Moscow provides military and political support to the Iranian regime.
They support us politically and in other matters. Military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not a secret. You know, we've worked with each other before, and this continues and will continue, I hope.
In turn, Kyiv, according to Volodymyr Zelensky, will provide support to the United States and their Middle Eastern allies who are suffering from attacks by Iranian drones.
When Ukraine communicates with the countries of the Persian Gulf, when the United States and personally Trump ask Ukraine to share technologies, which without a doubt Ukraine currently possesses, and they are among the best and most relevant in the world, this is a positive signal that can definitely be used to strengthen its negotiating position as a result.
With that, we conclude our episode. We continue to closely follow the most relevant events right now so we can be the first to tell you about them. Don't forget to subscribe. See you soon!